Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Raffi. As always, joined by Theodore and Davian. Boys, Davian, real quick, let's make fun of Theodore. The Giants lost. They're not going undefeated. They're not making the
Come
playoffs.
on.
Get into the system. Kenny Galladay. Do you want to
Theodore,
talk a
this is
little
what you
Kenny
get for
Galladay
talking
moment real
smack
quick,
about me
Theodore?
on the last podcast.
We still got as many wins as the Pats and Falcons combined. More wins, actually, than the Pats and Falcons combined. So,
What? That's 2
No,
and 2.
no, you don't. No, you don't. We have one win. The Falcons have one win.
So we're tied right
Yeah,
now.
so the
We're
same
tied.
amount of wins the first
You
time.
said
I
more.
shouldn't-
You said
You
more,
said
though.
more.
But anyway.
Okay,
how
whatever.
are we doing
Point being, we will end up with more wins.
Point is,
Pats.
you lost to Cooper Rush. Thank you.
Yes.
Point is, helmet catch.
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush. We'll go with Cooper Rush. And then we also have Davian, who is doing well, but not doing well in the football sense. Boys, how are we doing today?
I can't.
I'm
talk
doing
about
great.
the Patriots. I'm not talking about
Okay.
them anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
Devontae
Yeah,
Parker.
look,
you know.
I am doing great. It's been tough fighting the urge all day to bash Kenny Galladay's skull in. But besides that, I honestly don't feel as bad about this team as I think I should. The line sucked, but yeah, they're young. Give them some time. The receivers sucked, but guess what? That's all Gettleman's doing. I mean, I'd like to see this guy Wan'Dale Robinson, our second-round pick, on the field, but all in all, I can't be that mad about this team. I think we're young. We're going to lose some games, but we're also clearly going to win some games and be competitive. Jones looked like a very capable QB. He did everything he could against an awful pass rush and an equally awful receiving core who literally falls when he's trying to deliver, get run his game-winning drive. And also, I just feel so bad for Shep, though. Let me just say, torn ACL. I think he's had like 5 concussions, a torn Achilles, and a torn ACL now. Sucks that how his careers went. Wish him all the best in the future.
I've had him on some fantasy teams in the past, which is the true indicator of high potential player. And unfortunately, he just never was able to put together a really, really good season. So obviously wishing the best for him. Moving on to some other stuff real quick before we get back into football talk. Albert Pujols, 700, the big guy. This was supposed to be like the end of his career. Like, okay, like he's like, let's just trot his corpse around at all the ballparks. He's been good this year. Like, he's actually been like
Really good.
a
Yeah.
key player for the St. Louis Cardinals this year, who I don't know if they're one of the top teams in the NL, but they're certainly a team that you shouldn't be taking too kindly, potentially, when we're looking into the start of October, which is, I think, in 3 or 4 days. So I'm hyped about it as we're recording this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. No, it's been good. I was really excited to see him really hit that dinger. Number 700. I saw a lot on Twitter about like, oh, did Zach Hampel catch his 700th home run? For those who don't know who Zach Hampel is like this 30-year-old ball hawk, I guess is the best way to describe it. He just goes around to different fields and catches baseballs. It's just like, it's kind of like, it's fun to watch him because it's like a little kid who's just super excited about going into the ballpark and just, catching baseballs. Now that Judge is about to hit 61, or hopefully he does. I mean, it's been a bit of a drought for the past few days of dingers from Judge. They're saying like, oh, will he catch it? So Theodore, I mean, I know that you know Zach Campbell. So do you have any thoughts on him?
We all know who Zach
Yeah. As a retired sports card influencer, thankfully those days are gone. But yeah, I still talk to people about all this stuff in the memorabilia card field, and my view on Hampel is if he wasn't doing it, someone else would. And other people do it, and other people are much worse than he is. Like, from everything I've heard about him, he gives some of the balls he catches to kids. He made A-Rod. He caught, I believe, A-Rod's 700th home run.
I think it was 3,000th hit. That was like a home run.
3,000th hit, maybe. Okay. After he caught it, first of all, people are mad at him for not giving the ball to the 100 millionaire, which is absurd. But like he made A-Rod pay a charitable donation. Like, he seems like a decent guy overall. Obviously, yeah, he probably ruins the fun for some kids, but I'm not that against what he does.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like, I know I've watched a few of his videos. He like usually catches the ball and gives it to the kid. Now, the argument is like, but the whole idea is that the kid is catching the ball and it's part of the experience. Right. But I mean, we could talk about him all day. Yankees are actually looking very good for the past few days.
Yes.
Very happy about that. Past few
Carpenter's
weeks.
coming back too. I don't know if you saw Davian. Carpenter made a
Uh,
great rehab start.
I really don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
put up with this for the next couple of weeks as October gets underway. We have 8 days, or at least 8 games for a lot of teams until 162, and thus the postseason will begin, which is the only part of the MLB season that I personally care about because regular season is very boring. But at least these games down the stretch,
Just because his team's up.
I'm at least intrigued to turn on a game or two now that we're entering the final stretch and there's some playoff spots on the line. But we're finally in interesting baseball, so I'm excited about that. And once again, October baseball, one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things. Obviously, you have the NHL playoffs. There's so many things that I love, but the MLB playoffs are one of those things. And let's go on to a thing that I also love. That's starting a month or two later. Arguably one of the greatest Christmas presents ever. We're not going to get into why it's during Christmas break. I don't want to talk about it. The World Cup, it is starting soon. It should have happened a couple months ago. I've had my rants. It's going to start up in a couple months. And I just want to say right now that this Group B is wide open. Wales and Scotland are looking pretty solid right now. They both are very defensive-minded teams. Or, sorry, Wales and Iran, looking very solid right now. England and the U.S., but you know what? At the end of the day, we can make fun of England. It is not coming home. I think we all can agree upon that. England, their past few UEFA Nations matches, has drew versus Germany yesterday 3-3, and that was actually a very good game. I wish I watched it, but it's all good. Italy beat England 1-0. Hungary beat England 4-0, and then England and Italy drew. So that's been the last four for England, and England will now be relegated as well below to Group B, which is hilarious. And if it wasn't for Armenia getting 2 red cards and unfortunately getting relegated now because they lost Ireland like an hour prior to this recording, Armenia and England could have been in the same group, which would have just meant that Armenia is as good as England.
Yeah, it's not coming home for sure, and I don't think it's coming home for America either. I'm sorry, but this American team has not been playing well. I watched them against Japan, in class, because what else am I gonna do in class? It was a 2-0 loss to Japan. Now, Japan, you could say like, oh, the Japan's like a solid team, but like America just played ugly. There was no touch, there was no technique, there's no like chemistry between the team. And then now they just tied to a Saudi Arabia team that like nobody really knows about.
One of the weaker teams.
Yeah. And it's like we're talking about America like, somehow making it out of the group stages. Like I'm not even sure if that's possible because Wales is a solid team. Iran, haven't seen them before, but they might be a solid team too. And we all know about England, how England is, yes, America could be England, but if America wants to be England, they first have to like somehow be able to like put up a performance that would also be able to beat Wales. And I'm not sure if they could do that. Just disappointing stuff. I'm hoping it picks up within the next month or two as we head over to Qatar. Sadly, I hate that's in Qatar, but it is what it is.
Right, yeah.
We all can agree upon that. I don't even want to start. But I do want to say Wales is a team that I am just concerned about because they're a team, as we've seen before in the Euro, that they're not going to put a bunch of goals in the back of the net. They aren't going to go crazy offensively and show you all the speed on the pitch. But man, they will drain you out and play a very good, tight formation throughout the entire game and make sure that your scoring chances, you're barely getting any. So Wales is a team that I wouldn't be shocked draws with a bunch of teams, and who knows, they might even make it to the round of 16. Iran is a team that a lot of people are pitching as an underrated team going to World Cup. I haven't done enough research to really make a statement about that. One thing I do know is the geopolitical news articles that could be written about this group are going to be absolutely amazing. Yeah. But I will just say this. If it's not going to be the Americans this year, it sure as heck's not going to be England. And finally, if you're an American watching this and you feel hopeless and maybe the Americans don't live up to expectations this year, just know this is a very young team. And worst case, we throw away the coach and we just gain more experience. This is going to be a great experience for this young team. And when they're playing in the U.S., which they've been great, they've been dominant at home on home turf. When they get to the U.S. in 4 years, this team is going to be much better and have a lot more veteran experience with all the caps they'll have under their belt. So I think that's just important.
With that being said, though, Raffi, I just really think that a ton is riding on them getting out of this group. Which, first of all, I think you guys are a little overreacting a little bit to these matches. This isn't the 2017 team that lost to Trinidad and Tobago. This is a very, very talented roster, and I just think that there's no real excuse for why they wouldn't be able to get past Iran and Wales, even though, yes, Wales has some talent. I just think that if the U.S. can go out, make the elimination round, it doesn't matter if they lose right away there. If they can make it with this young core, the hype that will build up will be exponentially larger than if the team struggles. Like, I just really think that so much is riding on this team's performance in this group stage, if we're being real.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the best case scenario is the Americans win their group and then they wind up for Senegal. Senegal, I do have still some PTSD from Ghana back in 2010, but besides the point, Senegal is another sneaky team that I think a lot of people are underrating, but I think that that's probably the best case scenario because I would not pick the Americans to beat the Netherlands if
Yeah, I don't think
play second. I don't think so.
I don't think any of that matters. I just think it's about getting that elimination match, getting all these American fans to tune in, because I'm sure people will tune in for the game against England, but I just think that it'll be so much more if you can get this big time elimination matchup, knockouts round.
I may or may not have had the Americans the past couple of months going all the way to the quarters and losing to Denmark, but I might need to tinker with that a little bit. Currently leaning a bit more towards Wales, just because I like Wales. I think they're a sneaky team, but we'll definitely be able to talk more about this as we get closer. And closer to June, I mean November. Moving on, college football, another week has gone by, which means some more roll tides from Davian, and there was some shakeup. Oklahoma lost a game that I'm not shocked. They lost to Kansas State. This is 3 of the last 4 years Oklahoma's lost to Kansas State. Oklahoma, I said it before, we know that they're not going to make the college football playoff. That's been cemented this year. It's more of a retool year after losing Lincoln Riley, losing Caleb Williams. USC, speaking of those two, almost lost to Oregon State. And I watched the fourth quarter. It was one of the worst games I'd ever watched in my life. I thought it was the worst game until I watched the Broncos Niners. That was an absolute waste of my time as well. But yeah, no set of rankings out. Roll Tide. Theodore, thoughts?
Okay, first of all, my thoughts are that the SEC is very, very interesting this year. So much more interesting than I thought it would be. Because it's just like I just did not expect Kentucky or Tennessee to be in the place they are right now at all. I mean, it's just like the fact that they're out here 4-0 and in the top 10 is absolutely absurd to me. Yes, I absolutely think that they'll suffer losses at some point in the near future, but I'm also like looking, and I could very easily see either of them taking down Alabama or Georgia. And don't forget Arkansas and Texas A&M. They're good teams too. Like I just don't think Alabama and Georgia are as invincible as we thought they were.
Alabama's invincible. Do not say anything.
I think Hooker for Tennessee has been amazing. I think if you want, I see a lot of these upsets happening when you have a really, really good quarterback. And I think Hooker is that kind of guy who can definitely put a team on upset watch when we're talking about Alabama or Georgia. Tennessee, I feel in its righteousness should be in the top 10. I like Tennessee a lot. Kentucky, again, putting mayo in coffee. But just in general,
interested in that team still.
I'm just not a fan of Kentucky. They beat Florida, but I feel like everyone just overrated Florida way too quickly.
Yeah.
And they beat them, and it's like, oh, Kentucky's really good now. We'll see what happens. Kentucky plays Ole Miss this upcoming weekend. I don't know how they're going to vote versus.
Yeah, Ole Miss. I didn't even bring them up.
And then at the end of October, you have Kentucky versus Tennessee. So that's going to be a really fun match up to watch as a whole. I think as a whole, we can say that the Pac-12, if there's any chance they're not going to have a representative of the college football playoff. Another thing I want to mention too, I feel like I've been saying this way too often, where I look at the top 10 and after 3, I just say meh. Theodore, you mentioned Ohio State's not a cakewalk, and I agree with you.
Right.
But if I just see Bama, Georgia, a Big Ten team, either Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State, I think it's going to be Ohio State or Penn State.
Mhm.
But I still don't know who's for. And I know I've been saying this past few
Yeah.
weeks. I genuinely,
Okay.
I don't think we can see 3 SEC teams. I don't think that's possible. But
No, we can't. Raffi, and I'm honestly starting to think that we won't even see 2. Like, I know this sounds absurd, but
I feel you're taking too much away from that Kent State Georgia game. I think
I know. I think Georgia's a really good team. I know Georgia and Alabama are both incredible teams. I just could really see an upset happening. And look, let's take a look at the Big Ten real quick. Minnesota, yes.
I can't wait. Minnesota plays Illinois in a few weeks. I'm going to that. I can't wait for that.
They have a very winnable schedule. If they go into the Big Ten championship undefeated and play a competitive game against a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan or even Penn State, man, that is going to be a tough decision for the committee to make. USC still undefeated. I don't trust anyone else in that Pac-12 at all, but I could see USC being there. And I'm still pretty high on Oklahoma State. I think I think odds are they do suffer a loss at some point and get the Big 12 eliminated, but you never know. And then, the ACC, I've been saying NC State's overrated all year. I stand by that.
State,
but
we'll see it. We'll see right now because NC State does play Clemson this weekend. So that's gonna.
You gotta think you gotta think the winner of that game is in great shape for that 4th spot, right?
Yeah, but then again, we saw Clemson struggles versus Wake Forest, which I know you were very pleased about, which was very close. But I think the worst thing that could happen for the ACC is NC State wins that game because I think NC State has a much higher chance of being upset later on in the season than Clemson does, regardless of the rest of the ACC being absolute buns. Did Raffi win the ACC? I don't think we did. I think that's a Mandela effect. So if you say that I said that, you're wrong. I never said that.
Raffi, this just came to my attention doing the research for the show earlier, but Florida State is 4-0. Yeah, I had absolutely no idea this. I don't think
started last season 0-4. So Florida State has definitely turned up. That place is full of oh boy, but their football team has been doing pretty well. So that's good. And then
I don't think they're a threat, but good for them.
Yeah. Minnesota's rest of the season before we move on. Purdue at Illinois. Once again, I can't wait for that game. Ibrahim is low-key a Heisman dark horse right now, just how well. I remember watching him play last year. I forgot who they played week 1 last year, and he got hurt, but he put up over 200 yards that first week. I can't wait to watch him. I'm so excited. But then you have Penn State. But aside from that, sorry, Davian, for what I'm about to say, but you have Rutgers, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Wisconsin. I think Minnesota can I think it's likely if Minnesota can get past Penn State and get through Illinois, because Illinois they've had a little dog.
Illinois is Raffi.
They're going to get
Rutgers,
run over.
Iowa, and Wisconsin are all bigger threats than Illinois. I'm sorry.
That is a lot.
Purdue probably is.
No, I'm sorry. This Rutgers team is abysmal. How do you bring in the 3rd highest attendance? You bring in 50K fans, and you play just the worst type of game I've ever seen. I didn't even watch that game. I was just following it. I'm sorry. They just played abysmal to Iowa. And then look, Iowa's a solid team, okay? Look, I'm not completely dumb when it comes to college, football, but I know that Iowa's at least a kind of solid team, but their offense is pretty sucky, at least given 2 weeks ago with how they performed. So I'm just very disappointed in this Rutgers team. I've lost all hope. Roll Tide.
Speaking of hope and starting to potentially panic, let's get into our final segment, the Panic Index. We have a whole fun list of NFL teams. I don't know if we're going to get through all of them, but regardless, we'll start with some of these teams, and we will give our analysis on whether or not we think that they should be panicked or not. Starting off with the Raiders, Theodore, I'm going to give you the Raiders. They're 0-3, the only team to have not won or tied a game, because the Texans did tie 1. LOL Colts. But what are your thoughts on the Raiders? Josh McDaniels is showing a little Denver Josh McDaniels from the end of his tenure there.
Yeah, this is a clear panic. I at 0-2, I wasn't panicking, but the fact that they couldn't pull it through against a Tennessee. All right, well, let's just clear this up. Tennessee is a team that I legitimately think is bad. I know we'll get to them later in the video. The Raiders had no excuse for losing that game. Because the Raiders clearly have talent, and I do think that they'll turn it around at some point. I just think that you can't afford this kind of start in the division that they're in, and I just don't see any clear path for this Josh McDaniels team to even get to the playoffs at this point at 0-3.
Yeah, I heard an announcement a few weeks ago, or recently, earlier today, that Darren Waller has been selected to drop the ball on New Year's Eve because, man, he dropped a couple big passes for the Raiders this past weekend, and I think New York and everyone else took note. So Darren Waller, congratulations.
It's going to be hard to beat out
Kenny was the guy who did it
Galladay.
last year. Now Darren Waller. So we continue this trend of having elite NFL players dropping the ball. Davian, I'm going to give you the Denver Broncos right now.
Oh yeah, the Denver Broncos.
Their defense is
Wonder
really
why
good.
you avoided me. Wonder why you took this one away from me, Raffi.
Because I give you the Cardinals later.
Nah, this Broncos team is abysmal.
They're so good on defense, but
no, okay. I'll give you this. Their defense is good, but you're playing against. Well, I love Jimmy G. You know I'm the biggest fan of Jimmy G.
Yeah.
But my man's walked out of the end zone and threw a pick six at the same time.
That's very impressive.
How do you do that?
I'm impressed by that. I'm very impressed by that.
That's not even Dan Orlowski. Like even he couldn't throw a pick six.
You guys see him on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has an absolute field day.
Wilson is not cooking whatsoever. Their running back core is very confusing because they said that it's like Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, but then I don't even know. Like they can kind of run the ball. The wide receiver core is elite, but they like either Russell Wilson's just not putting the ball in their hands, or is just completely like overthrowing them, underthrowing them, or these players are just dropping the ball. Broncos team is just terrible. There's nothing more to be said about that. Raffi, what are your thoughts on the Bengals?
Ooh.
Kitty is going croaking. It's not going meow any longer. This team, I said this last week. I think the Bengals, their main thing is, I think Joe Burrow just needs to get the ball out of it quicker. And that's not a concern that I have with him. I think he can fix that up. But I think we're now at the point where it's like, okay, your offensive line is pretty solid now. Let's not get sacked 7 times. So I think now some of it is falling onto him, which I think is no big deal. I think the Bengals are unfortunately meeting everyone else's expectation of this team went on a great run last year, great success story. The Jaguars will do it this year. Anyways, moving on. Back to the Bengals. I just think that at the end of the day, this is a down year for the Bengals. It's okay, but the big thing is getting back to. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they're the team that's going to make it in our Super Bowl. I don't think they're that crazy where they're a top contender, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as they might be this year. I think that they can linger somewhere in the middle where they're around 9 to 10 wins. They can make a playoff spot. They might have some average years, but I'm a big concern with the Bengals, but I think this was expected to have the Super Bowl hangover, and I think over the next few years, the Bengals will get into that range where they're a consistent playoff team. Maybe they go on another deep run to like an AFC Championship game, but I don't think it's like, oh no, everything's bad for the Bengals. They're a very young team. I have no concern.
Their jerseys.
But Zach Taylor. Taylor is my own concern.
Real quick, has anybody seen their new jerseys, the white ones?
Oh, they're so fine. They're so
good. And now they have white helmets too.
And the white helmets, insanely good.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to watch Thursday Night Football this week.
They
They will lose to the Dolphins unless Eli Apple somehow locks up Tyreek Hill. Which, and then guys, if Eli Apple somehow locks up Tyreek Hill, life is a simulation. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to watch that game on TikTok. Thank you to those who broadcast it because I'm not paying for Amazon. Theodore, the Cardinals.
Man, this
Surely
one's
this will not be biased at
dumb.
all.
I just don't know. Like, man, I can't. I don't know if I can panic about this team. Oh yeah, come on. Why am I?
You're not gonna panic at the Cardinals.
I'm not panicked because they are the team I thought they were. You know, they're exactly what I said. Everything is right. They got lucky in that week 2 win. But they are a bad football team, and they will continue to show it. Done.
Yeah. So this is
All right.
Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray both get those. You have to pay Kyler Murray because how many quarterbacks are better than Kyler Murray? I don't think that there's an insane amount, so you kind of have to pay him, unfortunately. But
no, you have to pay him. You could have traded him. You could have gotten 3 first-rounders, most likely, and a bunch of players. You could have gotten a Russell Wilson like Hall, and you could have built around an actual franchise quarterback.
see, but then
Jason
you're going.
McSorley, right?
Those draft picks are magic beans, though, and whoever you're trading those picks to, you can make the argument that those first round picks are not going to be as good. You can make the argument if we're talking about this in the scope of before last draft. I agree with you, but now if you were to be like obviously you paid him, you can't really trade him. But if you were to trade him now, it's really stupid.
He would have fetched in a trade more than Russell Wilson and more than Deshaun Watson. I think,
Probably.
as a guy younger than both of those with, no track record of anything except being overrated and just no real concerns except his height. I just really think that he could have even gotten 4 first-rounders. It would have been an absurd haul in return. I've said the same about the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, even though I legitimately like Lamar Jackson. I think some teams need to trade their quarterback.
I think if the Ravens trade Lamar Jackson, that'd be the dumbest thing ever.
Tyler Huntley.
The Falcons are going to have $150 million, not this offseason, but next offseason. I would not mind to just pretend that I never said that having a quarterback on the rookie deal is the best thing to win it.
Yeah, Raffi, okay. If you're the Ravens and you're offered Kyle Pitts, Desmond Ridder, and 2 first-rounders, are you declining that?
If you're the Ravens?
If you're the Ravens.
Well, I mean,
one of which is
Ravens.
Assuming the Falcons are going to be a bottom 10 team, I'd say probably. I don't think Kyle Pitts is added into that kind of deal though. I think it would be like 3 first. I think it would be first. I think it would just be picks and like a roster player or 2. I don't think it would be. I don't think you'd be throwing in Kyle Pitts.
No, Raffi, that is how high the QB market is right now. I think the Falcons would give up Pitts and 2 firsts in a heartbeat if we're being real.
Or we wait 2 years and then give
Lamar Jackson. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that in a heartbeat for Lamar Jackson. If the Falcons have for him.
I know I've beaten this point to death, and I know you guys still refuse to listen to me on this. I just really, really, really think paying these QBs these massive contracts is not the way to win.
No,
but I think it's
Theodore,
more.
You want a system QB. You want a QB that will be within your system for multiple years because you build your offense around your QB.
So you build your offense, then you get the QB. The QB should be replaceable.
No. I disagree with that. You want to do
what you shouldn't be doing is what the Cowboys are doing, giving $1 billion to Ezekiel Elliott, who has currently just been absolute buns for last year.
Oh, come on! They trade.
I agree with you, Ralph. Let's laugh at that.
Trades Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I think the Cowboys aren't a panic team, but yeah, I thought Cowboys would be on this list of panic teams, but
they're 2-1 with Cooper Rush, so I don't think they have the right to be in the panic. Moving on, I would like to talk about the Saints. Famous Jameis is back to his 30-30 days of throwing picks.
Not even, Raffi. He's not even doing that because in the 30-30 year, he was one of, if not the most fun player in the league to watch. This year,
I guess that's fair.
The team just sucks. There's no fun about it. I don't know, man. I'm just disappointed.
Kamara getting hurt has been a detriment to the Saints and more importantly to my fantasy team, which is everyone's priority. So the fact that Kamara has been hurt and isn't doing his thing is hurting me more than it's hurting the Saints. Trust me, I know. I'm concerned about the Saints. I think that they need Sean Payton to come back, although I'm sure he doesn't want to and is waiting to hop on the next train to Miami.
They need Drew.
Theodore, before we close, I'd like us all to give our thoughts on the Buccaneers, starting with you, Theodore, because you were the one who wanted to take some time to talk about them.
Yeah, look, guys, at the end of the day, it's Tom Brady. I mean, how can you be concerned about Tom Brady? The Patriots as a team started off slow so many times. This one just feels a little different to me in a way. I mean, we know that this is not a typical Tom Brady year with the retirement and the skipping training camp. I still think I'd feel good picking the Bucs as my Super Bowl champ as I did in the preseason. I'm slightly concerned, Tom Brady doesn't score 6 points against the Packers. It's just not something Tom Brady does. I don't know, something feels off about this Bucs team.
Actually, they scored 13. I'm
Did it?
not. I'm not afraid about this Bucks team. I think this Bucks team is just injured. I'm sorry when your wide receiver when your number one wide receiver last week was Russell Gage. You had
Hey,
Mike Evans
don't
out.
you
You
dare
had,
disrespect Falcons legend Russell Gage.
no, stop, Raffi. You had Mike Evans out. You had Chris Godwin out. You had Julio Jones out. You had your top three wide receivers out. So look, I think they need wide receiver depth if there is going to be more injuries. Now, Mike Evans comes back next week because he got an unfair suspension. I don't know if you guys talked about this last week. I was watching the podcast from last week, but then I got pissed off that Theodore talked so much smack about me, so just turned it off. Um, but look, I think for the Bucks team, what they got to do, I think it's something what the Giants should consider doing is bringing in Odell. Yes, Odell it needs more time to recover, but if the Giants team is serious about going to the playoffs, which I know we're saying the Giants are not going to make it to the playoffs. I know Raffi and I love to joke about it. If the Giants team really wants
We
to double
will.
down, I think they should bring in more wide receiver depth. And I think that the answer is in Odell. Look, Odell played
Yes.
really good before his torn ACL. Now I say this before his torn ACL, and then we're looking at Robert Woods, and I said it right before the season started. We don't know about Robert Woods. He might not be as good as he is, and we're seeing that Robert Woods is not as good as he was with the Rams. Now you could say changing QB, you have a worse QB in Ryan Tannehill, and no offensive line for Ryan Tannehill to protect them, but still, it is a concern. And any team that wants to bring in Odell is taking a risk, but I believe it's a calculated risk to take him in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was very anti-Odell for a time. Even when he was on the Giants, I just kind of thought he was too much of a diva and head case for a team to have.
These kids these
I,
days
I just
pushing their
think,
heck yeah.
yeah, I just think he'd add so much excitement to the team. I don't think he's that much of a head case at this point. I think he might have matured a little. I want to believe that he has.
I think he has.
And
More
most
than
importantly, talent. We just need what he brings to the team.
Yeah.
Before I close the show and wrap things up, I just want to mention that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I just don't see the point in continuously bringing in players that have a history of injury.
Why not?
Julio Jones is the third wide receiver. I love Julio. Except for the fact that he hates the Falcons. But I love Julio. He keeps getting injured, and this was just proof. He's a shell of his former self. I hate saying that, but he's going to keep getting injured. He's not a guarantee that he's going to be healthy the rest of the season. We've seen how injuries just pile up on
Yeah,
him. And then if you want to
it
bring
doesn't.
Odell Beckham Jr.,
No, but this
you're
Bucks
basically
team has
asking
done
to
this
be done.
before.
Chris Godwin's dealing with his injury still. I just think you're asking the more injury prone players you're bringing in, you're just asking for injuries to happen on your
But the
team.
Bucks
Well,
team, they
Raffi,
bring in
it
these
doesn't.
players that have played terrible, haven't proven themselves. They brought in Le'Veon Bell, they brought in Leonard Fournette, and now look at Leonard Fournette. He's our RB1.
And
He's
look
a
at
surefire
Le'Veon Bell.
RB1.
Yeah.
I
Look
feel
at
like
Le'Veon Bell.
that's a strat, and I feel like they
Okay.
should stick with it.
Yeah, and Rafi, Le'Veon Bell had no true negative effect on the team. He didn't derail them in any way. None of these guys will. Antonio Brown almost did, but that's Antonio Brown. Stay away from that guy, obviously. But I just think there's very little downside in what they're doing. You really don't think Julio Jones could go out maybe late in the year and just have a crazy 200-yard game out of nowhere where he shows what he once was capable of?
No, I do not.
You don't even think the chance exists?
No, I'd be shocked
Absolutely.
if he had a game over 150 yards. I'd be shocked. I genuinely would be shocked. Especially,
No,
I
I
also have
think
Mike
we're
Evans in
gonna have
fantasy too, so I'm
150
very
yard game. I
biased
think
from a fantasy perspective. But I don't think he's got it anymore. He hasn't shown me anything the last year and a half for me to think otherwise. Even when he was playing
he
for
was
the
on the
Falcons.
Titans.
I'm just saying. But that'll do it all for this episode of the Benchwarmer Fourth podcast. We hope you enjoyed. We went a little bit over, but that's perfectly fine. We had great discussions. If you want to watch more of our videos, check it out on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe on that. Be sure to follow us on TikTok as well, Benchwarmer_sports. We're getting out some smaller videos, so if you don't like watching the whole 30-minute podcast, I don't know why, because these podcasts are great. But anyways, we get it. So check our smaller videos. I will be getting some hockey videos up on the YouTube channel as well in the coming weeks as hockey season starts. Very excited about that, so you guys don't want to miss that. So be sure, once again, you're subscribed to our channel, Benchwarmer Sports Network, and Benchwarmer_sports on TikTok. You'll be at a great rest of your day. You have a great rest of your week. I'm Raffi, and we hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of your week.